That's astonishing. We've got a British cabinet minister, a senior one, advising a foreign financer that a foreign bank should mildly threaten the chancellor to reverse government policy.
Peter Mandelson was practically born into the Labour Party. His grandfather was a Labour cabinet minister and he's been an important figure there for decades. He helped make Tony Blair electable, served in the cabinet 3 times, and more recently Keir Starmer appointed him to be ambassador to the United States. Now he's resigned his party membership, saying he doesn't wish to cause further embarrassment over his continued links to the disgraced paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein's records suggest he made $75,000 of payments to accounts connected to Lord Mandelson. But Mandelson says he has no record or recollection of receiving the sums and didn't know whether the documents were authentic. Dan Neidle is the director of Tax Policy Associates. He's been looking closely at Mandelson's affairs. He also used to be a member of Labour's most senior disciplinary board, the National Constitutional Committee. And we can speak to him now. Dan, morning to you.
Morning.
There's an awful lot to get into here, but I think we'll try and look at the chronology of this as we do it. Should we start with the payments? What are the claims about the payments to Mandelson through proxies?
So we know that there were direct payments made in 2004 because we have Epstein's bank statements. So unless those are forged, these are showing payments to Peter Mandelson. So if Mr. Mandelson can't remember receiving $75,000 in 2004, then that's pretty surprising. But we have the documents. So there's that. Then we also know that in 2009, there were a series of payments to Mr. Mandelson's then partner, now husband, for a course he was taking in osteopathy. And those payments were clearly gifts. They amounted to, I think the total's not clear, but it was somewhere over $10,000. There may have been other payments, we don't know, but we know pretty much for sure about those payments. The question is, what did Mr. Mandelson do in return for those payments? And we think we've got some answers.
And in 2003, he was an MP, and in 2009, he was the business secretary.
He was, and it was at a time of great interest to Mr. Epstein because it was post-financial crisis. The government was creating policy that affected Mr. Epstein's clients.
And should we move on to that? Is that the next step in this, that in 2009, the lobbying that seems to have gone on between Mandelson, the business secretary, in regard to a policy by the Treasury that would have limited bankers' bonuses?
Yeah, there's several things. The first, as you mentioned, in December 2009, the government announced they'd be taxing bankers' bonuses. And clearly the banks weren't happy about this. We can see emails between Epstein and Mandelson where Mandelson is essentially helping Epstein help his clients, particularly JP Morgan, lobby the British government. It starts with them discussing if Mr. Mandelson can persuade the government to amend the tax, but it then moves on. Epstein asked Mandelson if Jamie Dimon, then, I'm not sure, yes, he ran JP Morgan at the time. Epstein asked Mandelson if Dimon should call Alistair Darling, the Chancellor, one more time. Lord Mandelson responded Jamie Dimon should mildly threaten Alistair Darling. And so that's astonishing. We've got a British cabinet minister, a senior one, advising a foreign financer that a foreign bank should mildly threaten the Chancellor to reverse government policy.
And is it possible or plausible to link that to the payments?
Well, I doubt there will ever be a quid pro quo. And why would there be? If I make a series of £10,000 payments to you, you will then very plausibly be nicer about me on the radio without me having to actually draw a link between the two. But it's not just that. Something which isn't yet public, but we'll be publishing very soon, is that Mr. Mandelson forwarded internal number 10 discussions to Epstein, discussions about the future of the financial sector, discussions where Epstein responded with questions because he was clearly very interested.
When was this?
This was in 2009, around August 2009. So right at the time of the height of the how do we fix the financial crisis discussions in government, and very around the similar time to the payments for the osteopathy course, of course, years after the initial £75,000 payments. But it all looks like a very corrupt arrangement. The question is this just scandalous, or does it go beyond that? Is this actually misconduct in public office, which is a criminal offence?
Tell me more about this confidential information. What do you know about that? So these are Downing Street, internal documents?
These were Downing Street internal documents. I'm going to be posting them on Twitter, on X, on Blue Sky in about an hour's time. That there is one which was an email from Shruti Vadera to Jeremy Hayward and Peter Mandelson, which was talking about business lending and how to get the securitization market, the financial markets moving. That would have been of huge interest to JP Morgan and all the other banks that were Epstein's clients. And Mandelson just forwarded it to Epstein.
And in your view, and we'll have to put this, and you'll have to put this to Mandelson, we'll see what he says about this, so we haven't got his comments on this. Is that a proper thing to do, to be forwarding an email like that to an external figure, interested figure like Epstein?
Oh, you're a very fair man asking it so neutrally. But no, I think everyone in government would say that is an improper thing to do. And I've spoken to people who are in government at the time, and they're shocked at this. There's another one. There is an email from a chap called Nick Butler, who was a special advisor to government, talking about ways of getting business moving, ways of improving inward investment, ways of improving government finances. He talks about one thing you could do is that government had assets that were maybe saleable assets that could raise money for governments. And Mandelson flicks this email onto Epstein. Epstein responds, "What saleable assets?" And then Mandelson replies to Epstein, "Land and property, I guess." So Epstein sees a business opportunity here, and Mandelson is just forwarding internal number 10 discussions to him. It's extraordinary.
And did you get this from the dump? Is this all there in the part of the 3 million document dump?
It's all there. It's pretty hard to search. It's a rather basic searchability, and it's slow to go through them. But yeah, if anyone has time on their hands, Google Epstein files, go to that website, type in random things, or type in spelling errors for words like Mandelson, words like government. You might find things other people have missed. I think we're probably just scratching the surface of what's in there.
And what should happen now then, do you think? Because what you're saying there is this is 2009. This is several years after there was an alleged payment, which he denies, but an alleged payment to him.
He doesn't deny, though, does he? He says he can't recall.
Well, he's hardened up one of his denials. He actually said I think he has said at some point now that he wants to investigate this because he doesn't think it happened.
He doesn't think it happened.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think that's a denial, and he hasn't denied the gifts for the osteopathy. In fact, he says he thinks they were. He's confirmed that those happened. So what should happen?
Yeah.
I mean, I am not an expert in misconduct in public office. It's not my area, but I think people who have expertise in that and the Crown Prosecution Service should be considering whether this is more than bad behaviour by a minister, but whether this was actually criminal.
Just say I've just got his statement. This is the statement he made when he resigned from the Labour Party last night. Allegations which I believe to be false, that he made financial payments to me 20 years ago and of which I have no record or recollection, need investigating by me.
If I said you'd received payments of 75,000, would you say you believe them to be false, or would you say they were false? I think most normal people would say they were false. That is a very specific form of wording from him.
There's also a separate issue around his financial interests in Brazil as well, that you've uncovered.
Yes, so that's a funny one. That this was in 2010, in October 2010. Peter Mandelson decides that he and his then partner will buy an apartment in Rio. He sends emails asking for advice from Jeffrey Epstein. He describes Jeffrey Epstein as his chief life advisor. That's a word-for-word quote. And this was an apartment in Rio worth about £2 million. This was more than just a random thought of Mr. Mandelson's, because about 3 weeks later, he received approval from HSBC Private Bank for a loan of about 1.7 million to acquire the Rio apartment. Things then progressed kind of a little bit slowly, but in March 2011, Mandelson wrote to Epstein describing how he planned to buy the apartment. And this is where it gets really weird, because the proposal was a highly complex and artificial structure involving a Panama company and a Brazilian company interlinked with each other to hold the Brazilian property, with Mr. Mandelson and his partner holding interests in both. That was said to be to avoid Brazilian tax, possibly also to avoid UK tax. But it's pretty extraordinary that he was considering the use of this weird Panama structure. When we put this to him, and Mr. Mandelson's response was that he doesn't recall this and he's never owned property in Brazil. We then, not long after that, discovered that a Brazilian company was established by Mr. Mandelson around that time. We put that to Mr. Mandelson. He didn't deny the existence of the Brazilian company. He denies that it ever owned real estate. The company was set up for the stated purpose of holding real estate. So one of several things are happening. One possibility is that Mr. Mandelson is lying to us. Another is that he's using a very specific form of words that he doesn't think is lying, but I think other people would think it is. And the other, which is maybe the most likely, is that the purchase never went ahead. That they discussed it. He was considering using the structure, established the company, but they never bought the real estate. Either way, it's a very weird thing for a senior British politician to be doing, a structure involving a Panama company.
Just finally, just to reiterate the point you made earlier in the evidence you're going to be releasing later, in your view, there should be an investigation, in your view, into Mandelson in terms of whether he may or may not have committed a criminal offence?
Yeah, I think there's a danger that we think too much about Epstein here. And obviously, Epstein's crimes are appalling, but if this was some completely innocuous financial figure in New York, it would still be deeply corrupt for a senior British politician to receive money from him, to forward emails to him, to lobby the British government for him, and to give him tips that his client should mildly threaten the British government.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens, Dan. We look forward to reading the evidence you're going to be publishing in about an hour's time. Good to speak to you. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks.
That's Dan Neidle there, the Director of Tax Policy Associates, with quite a bombshell claim he's about to be publishing. We'll be putting that to Mandelson and see if Mandelson responds to us. But the idea that Mandelson, this is in 2009, forwarded what Dan Neidle is calling sort of private confidential information from Number 10 to Epstein.
Well, information that was to do with government discussions on changing financial policy, which would have been A, of use to Epstein's clients, and B, potentially an opportunity to make a significant amount of money if some of those things had happened and there was knowledge of them beforehand. I think this is a very significant allegation now against Peter Mandelson, and as Dan Neidle's saying there, he'll be publishing those documents. We'll keep a track of those and they'll be out on social media in the next hour or so. We will put those allegations to Peter Mandelson too, who said that he can't recall those payments, but this obviously goes far beyond that. So we'll keep a track of that throughout the programme this morning.